Okay, good morning. I just wanted to finish the idea that I was talking about when I was getting into work. I'm not allowed to film on the property of the institution, so that's why I stopped. I was talking yesterday about how we cannot allow ourselves to be disappointed by people, particularly when it comes to matters of faith. So I want to discuss a few issues related to that. And all kinds of exterior, superficial things that people put their faith in outside of God. I think this is really essentially the sin of idolatry. When people put their faith in something other than God, and they do something other than what God wants, and it's related to something else that I wanted to speak about, but I don't know if it's proper for me to speak about it in English, so maybe I might make a separate video in Yiddish about that. I mentioned yesterday the story of Rabbi Asher Wade, who I had the discussed to meet a few times, fine person, Ger Tzedek, a Ger squared. He said that he's a Ger Chassid and a Ger Tzedek, and he used to be a Methodist minister. And I can see the certain, whatever. We'll put that aside. My derech is different than that of the Ger Chassidim, but I can respect them. They're different. They do things differently, not just the way they dress. That's what I mean. That's it. Not that I wear a shtreimel, they wear a spodek. And by the way, what I was wearing the other day, a kolpik, not a spodek. But we'll put that. That's only for like a tish, for a weekday tish, right? Things like that. Which I know a lot of the Rebbes, they don't wear it, but it's an old rabbanish thing. And when I found the yichus back to Chavas Yor, even the Ashkenazish rabbanim wasn't even a Hasidish zach. We'll put that aside. But there's also a lot of things that are very important to admire about the Ger Hasidim. Again, we're not talking about that right now. But this really comes down to major nakuda of what the Ger Hasidim focus on. The Kotzker taught about truth and the importance of truth. And people can apply this to, if you're of a different faith, you should really apply it to your own faith. Again, not to be discouraged and not to lose your faith just because you're disappointed by the actions of human beings, because we all have problems. It is shocking when someone that you expect to be on a higher moral ground has bigger problems than the average person, and there are reasons for this, which we can get into, why things happen like this, what exactly. But the thing is, it doesn't destroy the whole institution necessarily. And also the fact of the matter is, people are innocent until proven guilty in America. Just because they're ruined, and sometimes even, courts have made mistakes. They're innocent people who are let free all the time after 30 years, something like that. And I can think of two cases that I know of personally that were big, and I know the people personally, and they were big in the media and everything, and I believe both of them to be innocent personally, and I'm not saying that as an apologist to people who actually commit these crimes, God forbid. On the other hand, there's someone else who I know personally, who he made some kind of plea bargain, only got 5 years, and he should be put away for 100 years. He's a very dangerous person. It is what it is. That's the world we live in. It's the Balatanya said, Olam Asir Rubeira, that this world is mostly evil, whatever that means. And so even within religious establishment. Religion doesn't make a person better necessarily. It doesn't make a person worse. It just is what it is. I'm talking about which religion, what someone is, or even if someone's religious at all. However, in the ideal, religion should help a person get better, but it doesn't always work that way. And again, which religion one is and which one isn't. Sometimes it has an effect one way or the other, but sometimes it doesn't really matter. In the grand scheme of things, it could matter. But for the most part, but we think about what the Navi Malachi said, that God's name is great among all the nations, and that every place where they're offering incense, it's a pure offering. Mincha Tahara. Gadol Shmi B'Goyim Amar Hashem Tzvaka. He said, great is my name among the nations. And that's in the days before Christianity, before Islam. They were all pagans. And yet God told his prophet that he recognized that the pagans on a certain level are worshiping God. And so therefore one should not become arrogant. It's really more of a Musar lesson. One shouldn't become arrogant, not saying a theology lesson as much as a Musar lesson, but there is a certain level of theology in there as well. But the main point is the Musar of saying, don't think you're just because you have the true religion means that you're better than other people. And that's a difficult lesson to remember, particularly in light of what Rabbi Wade was saying here in the story we told yesterday. Again, it was interesting. He was a member of a shul where many years later, this was, I think, before I was even born, the story took place, but he was a member of the shul where I served as Rav for a number of years, personally, and and it happened to be that, I don't know if at the time he was in that shul or a different shul, but whatever it was that they asked him, why did you convert to this? Look, these people are hypocrites. They're talking in the middle of the services and things. And he said, I didn't do it for the people. People will always let you down. I did it for the truth. I did it for God. And similarly, a few weeks ago, this is something I wanted to share at work. I oversee religious services for all the different religions at work in the institution where I work. And I'm not mentioning which institution it is or even which state it's in, just saying in general. And so I was present for the Muslim Jummah service, and the Imam says a khutbah, which is their sermon, and it's considered, particularly on Friday, to listen to the sermon. It's considered a very, in addition to the prayer, it's considered to be a very special aspect of devotion and obligation in Islam, the Friday Jummah prayer. And the Imam said, we're blessed with a very wise and moderate Imam, but also in his wisdom he understands, how to interact with some of the institutionalized people who are maybe not as moderate as he is, and how to reach out to them and find the common ground. And he said that, as far as for his religion, but it's the same thing for Judaism, same thing particularly for certain types of Christianity, particularly ones that are very cultural, the more old traditional forms of Christianity, or perhaps even some of the newer forms that are also have very strong cultures, and family community structures, the way we have in Judaism. So the Imam, he said, for those who are there who were born Muslim, why are you Muslim? Are you Muslim for your parents? Are you Muslim for your family, for your friends? Even if you weren't born Muslim, but now you're part of the community. Or are you Muslim for God. And we can say the same thing. Why are you Jewish? Or the same thing. Why are you Catholic? Why are you Amish? Why are you Mormon? Why are you Buddhist? Whatever it is, why are you Sikh? Why are you whatever religion you are? Are you doing it just because that's what your parents were? And this is just how you grew up? Or are you doing it for God? Are you doing it because you believe this is the true way to serve God? Or are you doing it even if you believe that there are more than one ways to serve God? Do you believe that you're doing this as a devotion to God and not just to impress your friends, not just to impress your family, not just to so your parents don't kick you out of the house? These are the types of questions that you have to ask yourself. Not just to keep your family together. Are you doing it authentically as a devotion to God? And there are so many things that could lead us to lose our faith in God. I'm reminded of the story of Rav Shach, that he told the people who went out, there was a certain settlement in the Holy Land that was controversial as far as will they continue to allow Jews to live there or not? And I think the name of the settlement was Emmanuel. And at a certain point, the Israeli government decided they're going to give up, and they're not going to keep Jews in Emmanuel. And there were a lot of religious Jews there, not so many who were Haredi, who were ultra-Orthodox. They were mostly modern Orthodox religious Zionists. But Rav Shach said to them, he said, a time will come when the government is going to force you to leave this place. Now you might, one of the big problems of Zionism is that they worship the land more than that they worship God in a certain sense. Or they see the land as an intermediary between them and God. It's a problem in certain parts of the Hasidic world as well, which is something we're going to address in a moment. So, how they react with their Rebbes. And it's not only Lubavitch, it's really a great deal of the Hasidic world. And so Rav Shach said, when that day comes, you might lose your faith because you were hoping you were going to stay in this place till Mashiach comes. But maybe someone will tell you that there was an old man in Bnei Brak who said that this would happen, and you'll be able to keep your faith. Again, this is not a matter of devotion to Rav Shach as a human being, although there is a concept of devotion to Talmidei Chachamim and Tzaddikim. As Hashem Elokecha Tira and the Dorish Ha'esed, the Chazal, they were afraid to be Dorish Ha'esed, but then they said, no, this means the Talmidei Chachamim. There is devotion that we should have to Talmidei Chachamim and Tzaddikim, but the devotion is not absolute. The devotion is only as long as they're as Hashem Elokecha, that they're together with God. As soon as they become a Zaken Mamre, it doesn't matter who they are. So this is the next part of the story that I wanted to share. The Satmar Rebbe, the old Satmar Rebbe, he was speaking to the Manal in his yeshiva, I believe it was Rabbi Braver, and he said to him, obviously that the Satmar Rebbe was, by means of a very strong religious devotion and from his scholarship, opposed to any political form of Zionism, both religious and secular, and even to the non-Zionists who would kowtow to a certain extent to the Zionists, not in a personal sense, but in a sense of disagreement, respectful disagreement. And the Satmar Rebbe asked Rabbi Braver, someone who worked for him, he ran the school, he said, what would you do if I became a Zionist? So Rabbi Braver said, then I would also become a Zionist, because I'm a chassid of the Rebbe. And the Rebbe said, that is absolutely the wrong answer. He said, the answer is you should find yourself a new Rebbe. And so too, the Satmar Rebbe's very famous brother, the Atze Chaim, who's the grandfather of the current Rebbes of Satmar, the father of the previous Rebbe of Satmar, the Atze Chaim, the Sigurder Rav, he said that's what he loved about the Sigurder Hasidim as opposed to all the other Hasidim. Particularly in Sigurd, there were a lot of visions of Hasidim. I'm not saying to put down the visions of Hasidim. I love the visions of Hasidim. I love visions very much. And I don't know if he's talking about the visions of Hasidim. I think he might have been talking about other Hasidim from other Rebbes, because it's not so much of an issue in visions as it is in other places. But this is what I was talking about, similar to how the Zionists have a devotion to the land, and the land is almost intermediate, and we are supposed to have a devotion to the Holy Land. But it has to be in the realm of Torah in the way that God intended it, not the way we allow our emotions to get carried away. And so too by many Hasidim, particularly the more Hasidish Hasidim, the ones for whom Hasidus is more important. And that's not Satmar. That's not in general the Hungarians. In general the Hungarians, and I'm of Hungarian Jewish ancestry myself, and I find myself very drawn to this approach, the Hungarian approach. It's a more of a holistic approach, that we're not rejecting Hasidus, but it's really more, in a way, ideologically, it's more similar to the classical Ashkenazic approach. In certain ways, it's similar to the German approach. In certain ways, it's similar to the Lithuanian approach. Really, it's its own way, the Oberlander, the Hungarian Ashkenazic approach. And it also embraces many aspects of the Sephardic ideology. It's particularly in their approach to halacha. But first and foremost, it's a matter of devotion to God and to Torah, to halacha. And that's all that really matters. And all of this Hasidic stuff, the Rebbe, doesn't matter which Rebbe, not just picking on Lubavitch. Same thing many other places. It's unhealthy, and we can question, just how Jewish it is, to be honest. And you don't have that in Satmar or in Sigurd, or in general by most of the Hungarians. By the Hungarians, it's Torah. And that's what's important in the ideal. Not that everybody's perfect. Not even the rabbis are perfect. But that's the whole point. And so, I think the Atze Chaim said, he said, by most Hasidim, if the Rebbe would go and shecht a pig, the Hasidim would say, look, this pig fell from Shemayim, and it's kosher, and the Sigurder Hasidim, or the forerunners of the Satmar Hasidim, would say the Rebbe's crazy, or the Rebbe's wrong, or the Rebbe's a Rasha, maybe even he's wicked, he's evil, and they wouldn't just blindly follow the Rebbe. And because the main thing is, are we doing this for God, or are we doing this just because we have an emotional attachment to some human being? Again, you can still have that emotional attachment, but you have to have your priorities. You can still use all of these aspects of the Hasidic spirituality in a healthy and normal way. This comes down to now an issue of politics that Rabbi Yehuda Levin brought up recently. I'm questioning in myself whether I should even express it at all. Rabbi Levin is very upset about the support for not Mario Cuomo, for Andrew Cuomo in the by certain tzaddikim. I encourage Rabbi Levin to go and visit them and speak to them. I mean, I myself, if I send my children to those schools, I am a little bit afraid to speak up about these things. But it bothers me personally. I'm on board with Rabbi Levin as far as what he's saying. And interesting, yes, I was talking to one of my coworkers, someone who I supervise, very distinguished, I mentioned before, very, very distinguished Orthodox Christian priest, a great scholar, and he was talking about, being at the March for Life. He's written several books about abortion, against abortion, and he spoke about meeting Rabbi Yehuda Levin at the March for Life, and he said that Rabbi Levin is the is like Yirmiyahu Navi. He said he's the prophet Jeremiah of our generation. So maybe it's a little bit of a guzma. I met Rabbi Levin once. He's a fine person. I respect him. But again, you do find this. He was talking about how Kasharov was very upset about support for very unscrupulous politicians and immoral politicians who were spreading immoral ideas in the world. And here we have Andrew Cuomo, who shoved redefinition of marriage down the throats of New Yorkers. At the time, I wasn't living in New York. I was living in Virginia, but I believe I even called Andrew Cuomo's office to protest. And that being said, whether or not we can change it, but we should make our voice heard. And like Rabbi Levin said, it's all about money. I want to explain to Rabbi Levin, yes, he's right, we should be moicha, we should protest, but on the other hand, one of the reasons why it is the way it is because what's generally understood is that Cuomo will win with or without our vote. I mean, I live in a small town. My vote is not as apparent, and so I'll vote for Molinaro. I don't know anything about Molinaro, but all I know is that he's not Cuomo and he's not Cynthia Nixon. And yes, right now we're in the primary season. So the question is like this. These are the questions we have to think about. Let's say Cynthia Nixon wins the primary. I guess I'll just get into the issues as they are. Does that mean Molinaro will win? I mean, it's not just, it's oversimplifying it to say it's just about money. There are political concerns that are unfortunately part of living in Golos. Want to talk to Kasharov? Kasharov said, the old Kasharov said that Jews should not vote at all, even in Chutzlar. I find that to be untenable. And again, it goes back to what I'm saying, obviously we have to go out and vote in America. Eretz Yisrael is a different story, Medina Israel is a different story. There's clear reasons why not to vote in Medina Israel, and there are also reasons for those who have the minute to vote to follow, one Hasidic Rebbe who I'm very friendly with, they asked him, should I vote, should I not vote? Because he has a lot of people who are not, they didn't grow up as his Hasidim. And what he said is, if your parents vote, you should vote. If your parents don't vote, you shouldn't vote. Which is a very wise answer, and people were upset at him. And the Rebbe said, I go and vote. He's kind of in the middle. He doesn't take money from the Medina, but he votes. And so Yerushalayim Rav uses his mikvah because he knows it's a clean mikvah, meaning spiritually clean, that there's no money from the Medina in the mikvah. So meaning, let's say like this. I think Rabbi Levin would be moida that when it comes between Cynthia Nixon and Andrew Cuomo's the lesser of two evils. Again, does that mean we have to vote for the lesser of two evils? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It depends on the situation where we are holding in the world. Cuomo, I think it's clear that he's the lesser of two evils when it comes to in the primary. Now, Molinaro. Now, there's a famous thing which I shouldn't repeat in English. I'm very ashamed to even hear about that such a thing was said. When they asked one of the, I won't say which Rebbe it is, one of the current Satmar Rebbes. So there's at least four people we can talk about. Not four, it's two, but first of all, Bleep is not the Satmar Rebbe or Satmar Rav, he's the Genter Rebbe. So it is what it is. But Chaim Shia, Rish Zechut, Gavin Satmar, the Muncie, and he fears a Tish and takes Kvitla. So it's a Stickler Rebbe. But he's not really as politically involved as his two brothers-in-law. But whatever it is, they asked about one of the Satmar Rebbe's, wie sagt man, stitz in jene schmutzige Url. I'm not going to say a word that people will understand. I'll use a different word. Nochri, Url. And gesagt, jede Url, jede Nochri is schmutzig. I'm not going to translate that. Maybe Yovid. I find that untenable because I don't believe it, first of all, to be true, and also, again, we're dealing with lesser of two evils. Rabbi Levin oversimplifies it with all due respect, and I love Rabbi Levin very much, and I respect him very much, to say that it's only about money. It's not only about money, it's also about, especially certain things which are going on, if we have any power, it's because of our voting bloc. Not so much that the voting bloc can change the election, because it can't. It's so overwhelmingly Democratic because of New York City. Unfortunately, there is such an overwhelming level of how the Democrats are in power in New York City. There's nothing, absolutely nothing that can be done to get unless there's a big tide change. And if they're going to see that Molinaro has a good chance of winning, just like the Satmar voted for Pataki when they knew Pataki was going to win, so too if they see that Molinaro has a good chance of winning, there's a high likelihood of winning, they are going to vote for Molinaro. And I hope it happens. We can daven that it should happen. But the fact of the matter is, if you're fighting against, if places like Kiryas Joel and Williamsburg and Borough Park, so forth. Borough Park maybe less so because there's more diversity, but the homogeny of places like Kiryas Joel and Williamsburg and New Square, it's very easy to find out, especially if a large majority follows the voting bloc, who's basically everybody's voting for this particular person. Now, a better answer is that they won't go out and vote at all, perhaps. Rather than insult the one who's going to win, they just shouldn't vote at all. I find that somewhat untenable. Although personally, I also find it untenable to vote for someone like Cuomo. Thank God I don't live in a place like that, and even if I did, I wouldn't vote for Cuomo. And I'd be from that minority that didn't follow the voting bloc. But again, the reason why people follow the voting blocks, it's not because they blindly follow the Rebbes. It's also oversimplified. Like we said, it's because it makes sense to them. They're convinced that this is in their own interest. Now, it might not be spiritual interest, might be material interest, might be, part of it certainly is what Rabbi Levin is saying, that's about money. But there's more than just money. It's also about not insulting. It's a level of fear which is probably unfounded. It's unnecessary. We don't need to be afraid of these politicians. That's a major part of it. We shouldn't be afraid. But the fact of the matter is, for example, in Bloomingburg, last time there was the governor's election, it's a very small group. How many people? 200 people voting, but they all voted against Cuomo. I don't even remember who it was who was running against Cuomo at the time. I know he's on the radio sometimes. I think he was from Westchester, but they all voted against Cuomo because Cuomo was fighting against the Bloomingburg community. So these are the types of things to consider. Are we offending the candidate who is going to win? I mean, these are the two issues. First of all, we're still in the primary season. Rabbi Levin, would you rather have Cynthia Nixon? Now, perhaps, we could say is the what Rush Limbaugh called Project Loco. What did he call it? Where he sought to sabotage the Democrats by encouraging people who are registered as Democrats to vote for the candidate that's less likely to win. And if we believe that Cynthia Nixon is bound to lose, so then that's great. So vote for Cynthia Nixon, and that'll be a vote for Mark Molinaro. Politics is a difficult subject. This is part of political science. These are things we have to figure out. They're not so easy to deal with. It is what it is. So, but still, I find it, that Rabbi Levin, both Satmar Rebbes are very accessible. If I would talk to them about this, I would seriously, I'd be worried that my kids could be kicked out of school. I don't want to. It's probably more dangerous for my kids being kicked out of school if I would talk about this, then the fact that I have a YouTube account. It's that serious. And I have tremendous respect for both Satmar Rebbes. And I send my kids to both Meisters. And I'm a little bit happy with one of them, more happy with one of them, even though it's further away from home. It seems worth it for me to send. I have one child attending there. I'm thinking of sending another one there because it's so much better. So, thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment, and we will talk later.